Welcome to Coast Vue, the show that celebrates the men and women who are making coastal Mississippi such an amazing place to live, work, and play. You know, I really enjoyed that conversation with Delbert, the opportunity to check in with our state leaders, especially as we go into this next legislative session with so much to think about, all this federal money and all these goals. There are some challenges to address. There are many opportunities to address. It's probably one of the most complex legislative sessions that we've faced in a long time. We've got the referendum process that's out there. We've got the ballot initiative. We've got the medical marijuana issue. We've got nursing shortages. Man, it's a lot to think about. And as I said at the beginning of that conversation, our state leaders have to have numbers dancing in their heads. It's got to be just an amazing time. And hopefully they enjoyed their holiday break, because they're going to hit the ground running. Hey, one of the things I talk about on a regular basis, whether it's with Mary Graham at Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College or any of our major employers here in coastal Mississippi, or any state leader for that matter, workforce development is a huge issue in the state of Mississippi. There's so much opportunity in front of us if we get this right. And with that said, I've invited the executive director for the Office of Workforce Development, Ryan Miller, to join me today and just chat about where we are and what he does and where he came from. But without any further ado, let me ask Ryan to join us and just say good morning. How you doing, Ryan?
Good morning. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me this morning.
It's good. Where are you right now?
Right now, I'm in the thriving metropolis of Bay Springs, Mississippi, visiting with a company here, Holmac Corporation. They actually have a footprint there in the Gulf Coast, too. So we're hop, skip, and a jump away from y'all. But it's a joy to join you from Bay Springs this morning.
Well, thank you for joining us and being outside. I guess it's kind of cool right now there, huh?
It's crisp, no question about it. But it feels good. I'm glad the cold weather is finally here.
Well, Ryan, do you spend a lot of time on the road visiting companies like this?
I do. Yeah, I think a lot of our time, our office is spent visiting a lot of our partners, both industry partners, education partners. This is workforce is as complicated a topic as there is. And I think the more partners we can have in the conversation, the better. So being on the road, visiting with companies like Holmac or Mary Graham, you mentioned that Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College, we do everything we can to try to keep boots on the ground in those places to keep the communication and the dialogue going.
So tell me about the Office of Workforce Development in general. What is it all about?
So the office, sure, great question, and certainly the office was created 2 sessions ago with the idea in mind that we needed to have a central lens through which to focus all of our workforce strategy and the resources that would go to deploying that strategy. And so the leaders there in the state capitol, the governor, lieutenant governor, speaker, and all the legislators agreed that the state of Mississippi finally needed to have an office whose sole mission it was to develop that strategy and see to it that the resources that the state has are focused in a way that's strategic and efficient and effective. And the office came into existence, and I was fortunate enough and blessed to have been asked to serve as its first executive director.
Well, good. That's good. That's good to hear that. And, when you heard me talk about workforce development at the beginning of the show, man, if you think about vital, like, planks to a strategic plan for Mississippi, workforce development has got to be way up there on the list, isn't it?
Well, it is, and I think each, you've probably heard. I think you said you had Lieutenant Governor Hoseman on. That's been certainly something that he has talked to specifically. I've heard the governor and speaker both say that it's one of the top issues, if not the top issue, facing the state of Mississippi. And so it is a complicated, very complex matter, but it's one that we have to tackle. And I'm grateful for the leadership's support in that, and anxious to really make some headway with it.
Well, Ryan, it comes in a lot of forms. We talk a lot here about coastal Mississippi, the bookends. I talk about the bookends all the time because I think it's important for people to understand that coastal Mississippi is really an economic engine that drives the rest of the state when you think about what we're all about. Obviously, shipbuilding, tourism, Stennis, all the things. The bookends being, of course, Chevron and Stennis. Chevron and Ingalls on one end and Stennis on the other, and then, of course, gaming in between and hospitality and all of that. We talk a lot about sort of the old economy, which is, and we still do this, which is about really working to get companies to locate here, to build plants here, whatever it might be, sort of the old model for economic development, still very much a viable part of what we do.
Mhm.
But there's a new emerging model which is related to the new economy, and I would say that the pandemic has really exacerbated that, and that is that people can now live just about wherever they want to, and so they can work for Google or Microsoft or Amazon and live in Mississippi, especially if they're high tech jobs and so on. But there's a real, I mean, if you think of that about that as a spectrum, on one end, sort of having the factors come in, and the others having really trained and able people, we cover the spectrum in our thinking about that, don't we?
Absolutely. I think the coast is uniquely positioned for that. And just for the sake of full disclosure, I'm a coast kid actually growing up. I'm from Long Beach originally. So, the coast is near and dear to my heart. And what I've always recognized about it is it's certainly a unique place geographically, no question. But I think the resiliency and the diversity of the people there lend itself to exactly what you're talking about. I think the workforce, the workforce tapestry that is the state of Mississippi requires us to look at some of those traditional forms of industry and employment. Ingalls, certainly, Chevron being mainstays, incredible partners along the coast for decades and decades now. More of what you might call some traditional manufacturing, even though both companies would tout some of the most innovative practices in their respective fields. But then you look at a group like Stennis, and you look at some of the companies that are there, literally building rocket engines and building rockets, and some of the sophisticated industry sector that you have on that parcel of land. I think it runs the gamut, and the coast is uniquely positioned to take advantage of those opportunities. Its people are resilient and industrious. But you're right. There are also some other opportunities. The pandemic has certainly exposed some weaknesses of ours, but it's also exposed some opportunities. And I think when you have companies that are looking to hire, qualified software developers, data analysts, IT kind of centric people who have the ability to look at quality of life, to weigh that in where they decide to work and play, the coast is a great example of a destination location for them. And I think you're going to see a lot of opportunity grow there.
Yeah, I've had some terrific conversation with Eric Hill, as you know, as head of the Center for Entrepreneurship at Mississippi State. And Eric has written, and he doesn't claim the term, but he does say, and what he writes about it, that Mississippi has an opportunity to become sort of the Silicon Delta, and I mean, there's a lot of factors in that. And I would also say that this whole discussion around the state income tax and how we can become more competitive in that domain may substantially help in that endeavor. But the whole notion is, that, as Ryan also points out, we need to build the sort of places where people can find a spouse. That young people tend to want to be together. They want to live, work, and play together. You're seeing an emergence of mixed-use developments all along the coast of Mississippi now. Some really large ones. One up to $50 million that's been talked about for Gulfport. That's the kind of stuff we got to be thinking about if we really want to attract and really push this whole quality of life issue. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. In fact, I was talking with a group just last week, having a conversation surrounding economic development. I think economic developers in Mississippi, we've got some incredibly gifted economic developers. I think as you run all the way down into Jackson County, you've got George Freeland, you've got Mary Martha Henson. You go all the way to the west side, and you've got like people like Lindsay Ward in the Pearl River area that are doing some amazing things. But they understand sense of place, or what we refer to in our office as social infrastructure. We need to worry about bridges, roads, highways, byways. All of those things are very important. But if communities aren't considering the social infrastructure, what are those things that might attract young people or attract retirees, attract a diverse population? If you're not thinking through that, along with your economic development strategy, you're missing a whole element that's hugely important.
Well, I mean, you mentioned the Economic Development Foundation in Jackson County, and every time I talk to someone from that community, one is they're very aligned. Something that Jerry St. Pay and I have talked about many times before. The mayor Pascagoula and I visited recently. Paige Roberts at the chamber is incredibly focused on community building, and George and Mary Martha, all these folks are kind of in tune with each other. And what you're seeing in downtown Pascagoula right now, and you're seeing this in other communities as well, but what you're seeing there in particular is just a wide array of development downtown that's going to create. I mean, I don't know that people at some point thought that Pascagoula is a place I want to live, but what you're seeing now is, historic district bringing back old buildings, mixed use developments, new restaurants opening up. That's, it takes a lot of folks to tango when it comes to workforce development, and you can't leave out these critical pieces, can you?
No, you can't. And I think, I used to work at the University of Mississippi. I was worked at the Center for Manufacturing Excellence. And I recognized, talking with young people, and as they were exploring some of their career paths, they were keenly interested in, how do I balance the work that I want to do with the life that I want to live. And I think our communities on the coast they've got that figured out.
I think we definitely have to continue to focus on as we go forward. This is Ron Miller. He's the Executive Director of the Office for Workforce Development. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation. See you after this break. Welcome back to Coast Vue. We have Ryan Miller, who's with us today. He's the Executive Director of the Mississippi Office of Workforce Development. I see, Ryan, that you have a law degree from the University of Mississippi, but you also went to Croft Institute for International Studies. And I would think that that education has really helped you well, because the point I want to make is that when you think about workforce development, there's a nonprofit element to it, there's a government element to it, there's academic aspect to it. There's a lot of collaborating that you have to do. So you really kind of got to have a global view of things, don't you?
You do. And I used to talk to students about this all the time. When growing up, I loved baseball and soccer. Those were my two sports there in Long Beach. But I hated physics. I think the math just pushed me away. But if you could have taught me the physics involved in a curveball, or the physics involved in the spin of a soccer ball when you're taking a shot on goal, I probably would have been way more interested in physics. So if we can get to students and let them understand that in their educational path, these topics don't exist in a vacuum. They impact one another, and that extends all the way into your workforce strategies to what you plan to do with your career. So students in K through 12, community colleges, and even at four-year institutions need to understand they're in a continuum that impacts one another. So whether you go on to college or not, at a four-year institution or not, there are pathways for you for a career. And it's impacted by all of those things. They all have that symbiotic relationship. And I think getting young people to navigate that earlier in their educational path is going to help them figure out what career path they want to pursue as they get older.
Boy, it's so true too. It is so true too. And that's really kind of powerful words, but it's the name of the game these days. And what I love about it is, and this is something that comes up with Mary Graham all the time, that there are as many people in their workforce development side today as there are in their academic side that will be headed on to a four-year university. That in some of the jobs, she mentioned a job actually that was a diesel related position that was over $90,000 a year. I mean, some of the kids that are going through those programs that are not connected to a four-year university will come out with incredible careers, and it's just amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, and very little debt. I think, again, so we have a philosophy in our office that there's no plan B. And I think so often this week, we're going to talk to moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas to convey the message that when we talk to our students and our children, we can't ask about backup plans. What's your I know you want to go to Mississippi State or you want to go to Southern Miss. What's your backup plan? There is no backup plan. There are no plan Bs. They're all plan As. And if you go to Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College and you pursue their diesel technician program, we have a partnership with them to grow that program. There's an unbelievable opportunity throughout the entire state of Mississippi to have a great career where you're making excellent money and coming out with no debt. So you'd be the age of 20 years old, essentially, with zero debt and potentially starting $50,000 to $60,000, and then within 4 or 5 years making $90,000 to $100,000. That's an incredible opportunity. We've just got to convey to students that's as much a plan A as going on to law school like I did. Which, by the way, I had so much student loan debt coming out of law school and no discernible job opportunity. I probably should have gone to diesel tech.
Hey, I know several people who might say that as well. Hey, listen, we have a short period of time left. Just real quickly, what do you expect as it relates to your realm of responsibility in this next legislative session?
I think our job is to just try to convey how we're trying to grow our office in the partnerships, both industry, like here at Holmac, but also our educational partnerships. You're going to hear a lot from us as it relates to our growing more of a relationship in our K through 12, trying to get more into some pre-K programs to kind of lay the foundation for workforce development, even as early as pre-K. It's important to do that. So you'll see a lot of educational initiatives that I think that we partner with. But I think by and large, you're just going to see more opportunities where we try to grow those programs like our diesel tech, utility line worker. You're going to find some innovative new programs we can't even mention yet that I think are really going to be exciting. So there's a lot to do. This session is going to be exciting. Hopefully I can survive my first legislative session. I don't know. The jury will be out on that.
Well, as I pointed out at the beginning of the show, it's going to be dynamic. My goodness.
Indeed. A lot going on.
Woo. I mean, when you think about so much. So Mississippi's always going to have challenges, and they're always focused on trying to figure out what we can do in this session to address those challenges. And then on top of that, with all this federal money coming down, just spells tremendous opportunity as well.
And we got to take it seriously. Once in a lifetime opportunity. We want to make sure we do it in focused fashion.
Probably one of the most transformational legislative sessions, at least the opportunity for it to be transformational, in our lifetime. I mean, I don't think we've ever seen anything like this. And hopefully, we have concerns about inflation. The last inflation report was not a good one. We got a new report coming out, I think January the 12th or somewhere around about that. So we'll have more information about that then. But it's our leaders are going to have their hands full. And good luck to you as you continue. I think you have a lot of alignment in the legislature around the role that workforce development plays, but your goal is simply just to kind of keep it top of mind for people so they don't forget about that. In the midst of all these other things they got to think about. So
that's right.
Anyway, Ryan, thank you very much. I appreciate you spending a few minutes with us today.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
Good luck to you. And Happy New Year to everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.